The fall of Constantinople, 1453. The Byzantine Empire in decline. By the mid-15th century, the once mighty Byzantine Empire was a shadow of its former self. What had been a vast empire spanning the Mediterranean was reduced to little more than the city of Constantinople itself and a few scattered territories in Greece. Centuries of warfare, the devastating Fourth Crusade, 1204, which saw Constantinople sacked by fellow Christians, and the relentless expansion of the Ottoman Turks had left the empire isolated and vulnerable. Constantinople, however, remained one of the most strategically important cities in the world. Positioned on the Bosphorus Strait, it controlled the vital passage between Europe and Asia and between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Its legendary Theodosian walls, built in the 5th century, had protected the city from countless sieges for over 1,000 years. Rise of the Ottomans. The Ottoman Empire had been expanding steadily since the late 13th century, gradually absorbing Byzantine territory in Anatolia and the Balkans. By the time Sultan Mehmed II ascended the Ottoman throne in 1451, at just 19 years old, Constantinople stood as an isolated Christian enclave, surrounded by Ottoman lands on nearly all sides. Mehmed II was determined to succeed where his predecessors had failed. Earlier Ottoman sieges of Constantinople in 1394, 1402 and 1422 had ultimately failed, but Mehmed approached the task with new resolve and revolutionary military technology. Preparations for siege. Mehmed's preparations were extensive and calculated. Rumeli Hisari Fortress. He built a massive fortress on the European side of the Bosphorus, across from an existing Anatolian fortress, to control the strait and cut off Constantinople from potential naval reinforcements from the Black Sea. Massive cannons. Mehmed employed a Hungarian engineer named Orban, who had originally offered his cannon-building services to the Byzantines, but was turned away due to lack of funds. Orban then built the Ottomans' enormous siege cannons, including one massive bombard capable of firing stone balls weighing over 600 pounds, a weapon that could shatter the previously impregnable Theodosian walls. Massive army. Mehmed assembled a force estimated between 60,000 and 80,000 soldiers, including his elite Janissary Corps. Naval power. He built a substantial fleet to blockade the city by sea. The defenders, Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, commanded the city's defense, but his resources were pitifully small compared to the Ottoman force. The city's defenders numbered only around 7,000–8,000 men, including a contingent of Genoese soldiers led by the skilled condottiero Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, who arrived with several hundred experienced fighters to bolster the defense. Constantine appealed to Western Europe for help, but the response was minimal. Old wounds from the Great Schism, 1054, between the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches, along with lingering resentment over the Fourth Crusade, meant that most Western powers offered little more than sympathy. The siege begins. The siege began on April 6, 1453. For nearly 2 months, the city endured constant bombardment from Ottoman cannons, which slowly but steadily battered the ancient walls. The defenders worked tirelessly at night to repair breaches, using earth, timber, and rubble. Several key moments defined the siege. The chain across the Golden Horn. The Byzantines had stretched a massive chain across the entrance to the Golden Horn, the city's harbor, to prevent Ottoman ships from entering. Mehmed's ingenious solution. In a remarkable feat of military engineering, Mehmed had his ships transporting overland on greased logs, bypassing the chain entirely and allowing his fleet to enter the Golden Horn from a different angle, outflanking the city's naval defenses. Repeated assaults. Ottoman forces launched several waves of attacks, all initially repelled by the determined defenders despite being vastly outnumbered. The final assault on May 29, 1453, Mehmed launched his final, overwhelming assault. Ottoman forces attacked in successive waves, first irregular troops, then Anatolian soldiers, and finally the elite Janissaries. A critical turning point came when Giustiniani, the Genoese commander, was severely wounded and had to be evacuated from the battle, which caused panic and confusion among the defenders. Shortly after, Ottoman troops discovered a small, poorly defended gate called the Kirkaporta left unlocked, allowing them to infiltrate the walls. Emperor Constantine XI, according to tradition, removed his imperial regalia and threw himself into the final fighting, dying alongside his soldiers rather than surrendering. His body was never definitively identified afterward, giving rise to legends that he would one day return. By the end of the day, the city had fallen. Ottoman troops poured into Constantinople, and the traditional 3 days of pillaging permitted to victorious armies began, though Mehmed halted it early to preserve the city he now intended to make his own capital. Aftermath and significance. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves throughout Europe and marked several profound turning points. End of the Byzantine Empire. It marked the definitive end of the Roman Empire's eastern half, which had endured for nearly 1,500 years since the fall of Rome itself in 476 AD. Rise of the Ottoman Empire. Constantinople became the new Ottoman capital, renamed Istanbul, and the empire used it as a springboard for further expansion into Europe. Hagia Sophia. The great cathedral of Hagia Sophia was converted into a mosque, a status it would largely retain for centuries. Scholarly migration. Many Byzantine scholars fled westward, particularly to Italy, carrying with them ancient Greek texts and knowledge. Some historians argue this migration helped fuel the Renaissance already blossoming in Italy. Age of exploration. With traditional overland trade routes to Asia now controlled by the Ottomans, European powers were incentivized to find new sea routes to Asia, contributing to the motivations behind Portuguese and Spanish voyages of exploration in the following decades. The fall of Constantinople is often cited by historians as marking the symbolic end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern period in Europe. It reshaped the geopolitical map of the Mediterranean and Near East for centuries, established Ottoman dominance that would last until the early 20th century, and remains one of history's most dramatic and consequential sieges.